very gracious and allowed us to use their space. So I just want to, first of all, give a big thank you to Flipboard. Thank you so much for hosting us. I really appreciate it. So we got a pretty cool agenda for the evening. So Tim is the iOS lead here at Flipboard, and what he's going to talk about is their Apple Watch app and some of the things that they've encountered, and also how they're thinking about migrating it to OS 2. And then he's going to be followed by Ben. Ben's going to go and do a really deep dive in OS 2, and then we should probably have about another hour left to go and network and meet each other. So why don't we go ahead and get this thing started?
Hello, hello. Can you all hear me? Can you turn it down a little bit? Thank you. Okay, cool. Let's see. I feel like a motivational speaker with this thing on. All right, hi everybody. I'm Tim. I'm the iOS lead at Flipboard. We really appreciate you guys coming out here. It's great to have all you here. We don't host things like this too often, so it's very cool and new for us. We're really excited. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the kind of backstory behind our watch app. I thought it might actually be kind of funny. I just realized I should have called this like watchOS 1 in depth, because our app is still a watchOS 1 app, and we're working on migrating it at the moment. So, but anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about the backstory. Flipboard for the Apple Watch is what we sought out to do basically is surface 10 stories that are related to the things that you're interested in on Flipboard. So within Flipboard, you can choose a bunch of topics and people and sources and subscribe to them. And so the watch is designed to be an interface where you can get kind of like basically 10 quick stories that are recent that are related to that. Hang on one sec. Hey, Luke, would you mind closing that door? I totally forgot to close that before we started. Oh. What are you doing? Okay, cool. Go for it. Sorry, one moment. Cool. All right. So Flipboard for the Apple Watch. We designed it to show 10 stories related to your interests on Flipboard. You can see here, for each of the stories, they're in a paging carousel. We show a photo from the story up top and the title and the source, and then we actually show an excerpt underneath it. And this actually supports handoff too. So if you see a story you like and you want to read beyond, you can actually pull your phone out of your pocket and launch it with handoff, which is something that Apple did with the Apple Watch. It's very neat. Secondarily, we support a few social actions on the watch. We are a social product, so we wanted to bring some of this to the watch as well. So under the Force Touch menu, you can flip to your Flipboard magazines. Flipboard magazine is a collection of content that you're curating related to something, whatever you like. And we also have a peer-to-peer messaging feature. So we allow you to send stories to your friends. And we show kind of a list of 12. These also both support handoffs. So if you want to, for example, add a caption or cross-post to Twitter, you can open it on your phone and complete the action there. Fun fact, this guy right here, Soren, and that guy up in the corner, Raphael, are actually the main two people who wrote the watch app. Soren was kind of the engineer behind the watch app, and Raphael was the designer. Unfortunately, neither of them could make it tonight, but they are kind of the two masterminds behind it. The what? That's Doge. It's a Shiba Inu, very famous dog. That's my dog's magazine. When Apple pitched the Apple Watch to the community, they said that this is our most personal product ever. It's not something it's with you, it's on you, I believe is what they said, kind of funnily. So when we sought out to build our Apple Watch app, it would have been very easy to take a feed that we have that exists and kind of slap it into the watch. But we didn't want to do that. We wanted to kind of embrace the platform as best as we could. So we actually, merged with a company called Zeit about a year ago. And Zeit has this amazing topic engine that we've since integrated into our product. And we actually use the technology from basically our Zeit acquisition to build a feed that is actually only available on the Apple Watch. You can't see it elsewhere in Flipboard. It's designed specifically for the Apple Watch. So this is sort of the backstory on the platform. Like, this was not just a client change. Like, we actually made changes to our service in order to enable this. And it's turned out pretty good. it's not quite as many users as our main app, but we have 3,000 daily active users, which I think is actually quite a lot for a watch app, and we have about 45,000 monthly active users. So and it's growing, which is cool. It's grown over time as people buy more and more watches. So doing pretty well there. To dive in a little bit and talk about how the app is designed in watchOS 1 and sort of some of the flaws and some of the things we'd like to address. So you can think of our product very simply as here's our app and here is our service pre-watch. Our app has a network manager. The network manager has all these formatters. It can talk to our service. It can get data. We also have a bunch of model objects that the network manager is able to turn data it receives from the service into, and we have a bunch of utilities that allow us to like manipulate images and persist things and all that. And so this can be kind of cumbersome to move into a watch app, basically. So when we started the watch app, we were like, well, how do we do this? And we had a deadline. We decided we were going to do this somewhat close to the Apple Watch's launch. And so we were like, okay, how do we do this? Fortunately, there's this API in watchOS 1 where you can launch the parent application on the phone and basically request things from it. This method, I'm guessing, was abused by more than just us. But basically, most of our watchOS 1 app goes through this because our phone app is very fully featured. It does a whole bunch of stuff, and migrating that over to the watch app was not going to be easy, especially because Apple's been promising kind of watchOS 2 from the get-go. So we knew we were going to migrate to something better later. So the gist of how the watch app works currently is we have our watch app, our main app, the service, and the app group. App groups are this thing in iOS, basically extensions that it's a shared storage space between different binaries. So our watch app will wake up and say, hey, main app, get me content. And then the app talks to the service, does everything that I kind of just mentioned to you before. And then it stores it in the app group. We persist the model objects into NS user defaults, I believe, and we take those images that I showed you and we write those to files individually because you shouldn't write huge images into NS user defaults. Some notable parts about this are we actually minify the model objects. So the model objects we have a lot of stuff to them. For the watch, they don't need a majority of that. They really just need the title, the excerpt text, and the source. So we kind of turn those into dictionaries and just write them really quickly. And they also downscale the images and apply gradients to the images. And this is actually really important because communication between the app and the watch over Bluetooth can be like really slow. And the images we download from the service can be an arbitrary size. So we downscale them to be the exact viewport size of the phone's screen and apply a gradient so that the title shows up really nicely on top of them. And then the main app, I guess I should have made the arrow go from the app to the watch instead of the app group to the watch. But the watch is woken back up again, gets a signal that everything's done, and then the watch app can kind of render its UI. This is inefficient because it round trips over and over and over again, and it can be really efficient. And our main app does a whole lot of other things when it launches, so it's not really ideal. So watchOS 2 is cool. We're going to fix this. And this is how. We're going to share code. So we've had our main app for 5 years now. Our company's about 5 years old. The iOS app's about 5 years old. But with the introduction of iOS 8, which predates the watch by quite a bit, they added other extensions. So, and we had a share extension from the get-go. When iOS 8 launched, we added a share extension. And the cool thing about, or I guess maybe the cool thing about watchOS apps is they have this special ability to wake up the parent apps, but when Apple introduced extensions in general, they didn't introduce communication mechanisms between them, or there weren't simple communication mechanisms between them. It was basically like you should have a bunch of executables that can run independently of one another. So in order for us to implement the share extension, we implemented a library that we call FlipCore, which is like shared components that are kind of can only depend on other things within FlipCore that can be used by any binary. And so this has enabled our main app and the share extension to grow. And our plan with the watchOS 2 app is to grow the library and use it in watchOS 2 as well. And also, if we were to ever introduce other apps or something like that, or more extensions, like a Today extension, it would all be built on top of this foundation. So this is kind of a more robust way to build the app going forward. So this is how we're going to share code between the apps in the future. But data sharing also becomes a little bit more complicated in watchOS 2 because in watchOS 1, the watch is really just a screen, right? All the business logic is executing on the phone. It's very easy to synchronize data on the phone. So, and then the interface is just sort of punt it over to the watch. So in watchOS 2, the phone and the watch act independently. They both have their own storage. So on the watch, we have NS user defaults. On the phone, there's the app group where we store the shared kind of credentials. And we're going to have to use something called watch connectivity, which I'm sure Ben will talk way more about, to share the credentials over to the watch. So that's the user's token and information, all that stuff. So the watch can create its own requests and kind of stand on its two legs and operate independently. And then there's a few other things I just wanted to enumerate that we're also excited about in watchOS 2. The first is watchOS 1 didn't really have a very advanced animation framework. It didn't have an animation framework. In watchOS 2, we can do some crazy animations, and we're kind of an organization that's known for animations, so we're really excited about what we could possibly get into. I would not expect to see flipping on the watch. That would be kind of crazy, but maybe something there would be cool. Another is custom complications. This is something that's very interesting to us. I think it will also be very challenging to a company like us because if you're going to show something like news in a complication, there's a couple pretty major challenges in that. The first is you better have very, very good summarization. Like even the largest complication is very small, probably only 3 words or something like that. The second is the news better be extraordinarily relevant and important if you're going to get surfaced on the watch face. So those are sort of challenges to us. We do have a glance, and we plan on continuing to support the glance. So the glance is also a nice way to kind of get the first story out of the feed that we provide you. And finally, the share feature that I showed you guys is actually a synthesis of a list of users that come from our service and also the local address book. And it's cool because in watchOS, now that watchOS is like a legitimate platform of its own, it has its own context framework. And so we can use that basically to surface the list of people that you might want to share with. So with that, I'd like to say thank you. And I'm going to hand it off to Ben. And if you want to see these slides later, I've made a little link for them. So yeah, thanks guys.
even more like Health Kit and watch connectivity. So today, what I'd like to do is go over the new features in watchOS 2. Then I'll show some interface and code, and then we'll talk about where we're at with the beta version right now and what's working, what's not working. So um, we have native apps now, and that means that the code runs on the watch instead of on the phone. And you can do networking over known Wi-Fi networks. And so you can also do lots of fitness things without having the phone there with you. And so that leads me into hardware and sensors, where we got the Taptic engine, which gives you haptic feedback. So those are the vibrations on your wrist. The digital crown, the accelerometer, the heart rate sensor, the speaker, and the microphone. And so some good examples of apps using those are the Ping app uses the accelerometer to measure the speed of your golf swing. Strava uses the heart rate sensor to gather data during workouts. And Insteon lets you use a digital crown to control your house lights, so to dim them. So that's pretty cool. And then ClockKit are provides little pieces of information on the clock face. Those are called complications. And some good examples of that are upcoming flight times that you can see there at the bottom, or how much charge you have left in your electric car. And you can turn the digital crown to move back and forward in time. So you can see what happened yesterday, what's happening today, and what's scheduled to happen tomorrow. And so a good example of that is you can check the weather for tomorrow. And you can also check back over the headlines that you may have missed earlier. So that's good for a news app like Flipboard. And finally, there is no Siri API yet, but Siri is starting to do some really cool things. You can dictate replies to email and text. She'll provide you contextual suggestions. You can also say, start a workout, open a certain glance, get transit information, and you can even control your HomeKit devices. So like dimming your lights, like I mentioned earlier with the digital crown, you can tell Siri to do things to your HomeKit devices. So right the weekend after WWDC, we had Apple Watch Hackathon, and we have a small video that kind of shows what's happened there. So that was a lot of fun, and you can check out all the winning apps on this address, but I just wanted to go over a few of them. So Watch Out was an Atari breakout style game. So you actually controlled the paddle on the bottom of the screen with the digital crown, and the ball came down and went up and hit bricks. That was really cool that they were able to implement that, since there is no you know, real scene kit or anything on the watch yet. POW was gestures that triggered sound effects. So you could do a fist pump, cha-ching, and that was really nice. There was Prezi Remote, and that lets you control the next slide. And it also acted as a timer. So when you were getting low on your allotted time, say you have 20 minutes for your presentation, then it would start tapping you on the wrist with the Taptic engine. And so I thought that was a really cool use for a presentation app. Family Burrow Clock provided a notification when family members entered or left geofences. The watchOS sampler is a really cool thing. It provides access to the accelerometer, gyroscope, hand drawing with core graphics, audio recording and playback, picker styles, Taptic engine, showing alerts, animations with a digital crown. And so we're going to look at some of that in just a little bit. AirDrum lets you play the drum similar to POW, but you could actually use your phone and your watch, and you could hit different kinds of drums, so that was cool. And Roland lets you find friends around you that wanted to do the same activity as you. And Propeller Pet I really like. It's a virtual pet that you actually have to go outside and walk when it gets a bit antsy. So it keeps you in good shape and provides nice cuteness on your wrist. So let's go over some of the interface and code items. So the pickers are all new, and let's see. Oops. So the first one is just the text picker, or the list style. So the focus outline and the caption are optional, but those help the user know when it's focused on and when they can actually use the digital crown to scroll. The next is the stack style. So this uses kind of full screen images that have the cool 3D effect as they fade back. And then there's the image sequence. So this just scrolls through a number of images using digital crown with no transition between them. So you want to use that when it's kind of obvious what the types of images that you're scrolling through. Also notice that there's an optional scroll indicator on the side there. And so that helps the users know how many items in the list there are to go through. And finally, there's the coordinated image with picker control. And so the ring around the outside is just a series of images that are moving along with the list style control that's changing there on the 16 minutes. So one of the really cool things that we got is animate with duration. So now all of the attributes that you have in Interface Builder can be animated. And so you can do cool things like changing the width or the layout. And so I wanted to kind of quickly show an example of that. So this is a to-do list app that you kind of, it helps you to do tasks over and over again. So you heard the Malcolm Gladwell thing where you should have to do something 10,000 times to really be good at it. So this helps you do that. So watch as we're going through this interface, and you'll notice lots of slick little animations. So when I press the Add Task button, notice how the colors faded in there, and we can add this, and notice how the to-do item faded up from the bottom. And then when I select one of the colors, it fades in very nicely. And then when I create it, we have a nice animation that comes up and alerts you that it's done. And then the table item fades in from the left as well. And when I complete the task, you see that there's a nice animation for the progress bar that goes down. And Shift Command 2. Oh, yeah, they use the same. So if I add a new task, so now I've got two tasks, and when one is down, it also has nice animation for the completed part of the table. So that's all the kind of cool stuff that you can do. And just to kind of show you a little bit of the code that supports that. So notice that this is the part for animating in those colors that you saw one after the other and fading them in. And what we do is create a little bit of time delay for each item in this loop, one after the other. And then we animate with duration over 4/10 of a second and set the alpha of each one of the buttons. And so with that, you can get that really nice animation that we saw earlier. So right in here. All right. So watch connectivity we mentioned, and that one lets the iPhone app and its counterpart watch app transfer data back and forth. If both apps are active, you can have live communication. Otherwise, the data transfers in the background, so it's available as soon as the receiving app launches. And what you do is you create a watch connectivity session on both of the devices, and they also act as a watch connectivity session delegate so that they're listening for when the other one is talking to them. And I have a quick demo that I can show for that. So see here, I have the iOS app and the Watch app up side by side. And this is an app that lets you purchase movie tickets. So I can do that on the Watch. Just select the movie that I want to go see and purchase the ticket. And then you see immediately it shows up on both of the devices. And same thing with the iPhone app. I can purchase a ticket on there. And it will also show up on the Watch. So this is kind of a slick use of watch connectivity. The thing to know about watch connectivity is that the apps don't share their database. So you can't use an app group anymore and store files into it and have both of them read from it. So you save it to its own individual database, and then you send the file over to the other device. And the watch also cannot do iCloud anymore. So any iCloud things that you want, you'll need to do on the iPhone and send the files over to the watch. And so one really cool thing is that now you can record audio on the watch. And so I can show a quick example of that in real life here. All right, so we got that, and then sorry. All right. So this is the watchOS 2 sampler app, which I'll show you a link to at the end. But one of the things that I was able to get to work, it actually doesn't work in the version, so I'm going to submit a pull request, but I was able to get it to work, is that I can press on the record button here, and it pops up the sheet, and now it's recording my voice. And then I can stop that. And when I press save, then it's going to be available on the watch itself to play. So I'll get this and press play now. So that is that. We also have Taptics, the Taptic engine, and there's all these different kind of haptic notifications that you can use. So each one has its own different audio tone and vibration pattern. Um, right now, you can't make your own vibration pattern, but you could chain together several of these if you wanted to create one that was kind of unique to your app. And I have an app that can show a demo of that as well. So this app, it's like a quiz, and if I get the question right, then it'll give me a good vibration. If I get the question wrong, it'll let me know that. So I'll intentionally get this one wrong. So it said, sorry, try again. And now I'll get it right. So you can see that this is the kind of stuff that you can do when you pair together the digital crown picker and also the haptics. So I'll get another one wrong here. So that's a good example of using the Taptic engine sparingly to work with the user and give them good feedback. We also have a video player on the watch now. So you can actually watch videos. This is good for social networking apps like Vine. And this one is actually included on Apple's WatchKit catalog app, which is right here. So you can preview all the different user interface elements, but they just recently added movie to that. Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. So in the catalog, actually, let me show you the icon too. So this is the icon for the catalog. And it has all the different user interface items in there. And they just recently added movie. So you can actually test out playing a movie on the watch itself. And you can see that it actually even does the audio as well. And we have HealthKit. And so HealthKit has some really cool features once they actually work. So you can actually start a workout session, and it will start recording, calculating your distance that you've traveled, your calories burned, and also how fast your heart is going. And right now, it's been hard to get that to work. This demo that I'm showing right now is something that Apple showed at WWDC, but they haven't released the sample code for that yet. So people have been trying to do it themselves. And one of those is here. So it's simulating right now. Oh, sorry. So one of those apps is this heart icon here. And it's simulating the heart rate right now, but you can tell by the green on the bottom that it is actually reading it. See that? See, there we go. Yep. And so you can start and stop the recording with this, but the only problem is it doesn't work. So there's still some more that Apple needs to do. But once that stuff does work, you'll be able to get the heart rate, and you'll also be able to record workouts into HealthKit without using the Apple workout app. So that should be a lot of fun. So watchOS 2 beta, and I started to mention some of this. Not nice yet, sadly, but our fingers are crossed for the Golden Master candidate that should come out in the next few weeks with iOS 9. So that's heart rate, active workouts, the gyroscope, and device motion. Right now, the accelerometer does report good data on the watch, and I can show you that. So this is in the watchOS 2 sampler. And you can see that as I rotate the device, then it is getting updates for X, Y, and Z. So that's how you can do gestures. It'll be nice once we have the gyro and device motion. Device motion can help you tell if the user is walking or running or riding a bike. But right now, even in the API, it can't tell you if you're riding in a car. So you might notice that even Apple's workout app and activity app are miscounting steps and things when you're riding in a car. Hopefully that's a feature that they add in the near future. All right, so what's very close to being good right now? Well, the pedometer, you can actually walk around and count steps. And that's another feature that is in the watchOS 2 sampler. So notice how everything says 0 right now. Take it, walk around. It still says 0. It takes a minute for it to update. There we go. So now it has steps and distance in there. So, that's why I say it kind of works, because it would be nice if you could, see the steps happening as they come, but this is pretty good where as long as the app's running, then you can actually get the steps that are happening. Yeah, that's right. So you can play audio files, so not just the ones that you record, but say you had some small little click sound or some music that you wanted to play in your app, you can do that. However, it doesn't seem to work very reliably right now. The interactive messaging you saw with watch connectivity, and that does work most of the time, like you saw in the movie ticket app. And then also streaming for core location. So Apple has an app called Potloc. It's right here. And so right now I can request from the watch my current location, and it should update. There we go. So it does actually show just the watch. And then I can also request streaming from my phone. So if I launch that up, then you can see the phone. And so if I, on the watch, request the stream, then it starts updating on the phone. Now, one thing you'll notice down on the watch, it says received 0. So that's also why it's almost working. So working very well. The accelerometer I mentioned, table animations. Table animations are pretty cool. So in the watchOS 2 sampler, we can check those out. So when I insert and remove rows, then you'll notice that the table updates in a nice little animation, and this is all free. You don't actually have to do anything. You just insert and remove rows from the table itself. So animated properties we kind of talked about, draw paths and gradients. Have a good app that can show that, but we'll show it in the watchOS 2 sampler first. So, oh, thank you. So you see you can draw all kinds of things, even SVGs on the watch. And you can also draw gradients. There's a linear gradient and radial gradient. And this is an app that shows the stock price over the last 5 days. And the drawing is actually happening on the watch itself and being rendered as an image. And so we can look at the different charts there. And I wanted to just show that code really quickly. So notice that this graph generator can be used by the watch extension. And it has this function called draw, where it sets up a UI graphics context and draws it off. But I couldn't get it to work where the drawing would stay there, right? So then I wrote this function called image that just calls the draw function, but wraps it with UI graphics begin image context with options. And then it returns the image. And so now, my functions can call the graph generator.image, and then it can just set it as a background image just like you would expect. So it's pretty cool that you can actually, draw a full graph on the watch itself. So picker styles we talked about, Taptic engine we talked about, alerts. You saw a few that don't have any buttons, but they're also alerts with buttons on the watch. So we'll use the watchOS 2 sampler for this. Okay, so you can have an alert that acts like an action sheet, but doesn't have a cancel button. So you'll have the cancel as part of the buttons itself, and you have a destructive button there in the middle. And then you can have buttons side by side in an alert. And you can also have buttons at the bottom with the cancel button at the upper left corner. And so these provide a really nice way for your app to feel like it has nice animations and things even without having to do too much work. So network access, we talked a little bit about, but you can actually fetch whatever you want on the watch as long as it's connected to a Wi-Fi network. And then audio recording, we also talked about. So what are the good resources? The watchOS 2 sampler, you've been looking at several examples of. The heart rate one that I showed that almost works actually does trigger the green lights on the back, but doesn't quite read the real heart rate. And then ClockKit, which I wanted to show as well. So when you want to make a ClockKit complication, you do that inside of the Watch app, and I'll show you how it looks in real life first, and then we can look at some of the code. But I force touch to get into my watch settings here, and if I'm on modular, I can customize it, and you'll see that in the big one in the middle, I can set it to the one that we've created, ClockKit introduction. And to get out of this, I can force touch again and then press the digital crown. And now you see that it shows kind of a schedule item there. And the cool thing about these complications is that you can use a time hop to go back and forward in time. So you can see there that I'm up an hour and a half in the future, and now I have a different thing that's happening, and even further in the future. And I can even go back in time. Oh, I thought I could. Guess it's not in there. But you can set it up where it goes back in time, and you can see what happened in the past as well. So we'll just look at a little bit of that code. So in the complication controller, you have all of this timeline configuration code that you go through, and then the timeline population code. Notice that we're giving a start date and an end date for when it should be shown. And then we're providing some template for the complication as well. So you saw the core location on the watch, and that is a sample app made by Apple called Potloke. Then the WatchKit catalog has the movie sample code in it. And Apple has also produced a WatchKit audio recorder, and I couldn't quite get it to work, but it will store the audio into app groups, both on the watch, and use watch connectivity to store it on the phone, and then you can look at your previous recordings. So I can show you what that looks like. So you can see that I recorded it from my watch, and then I have these audio recordings available on my phone through watch connectivity to play. There is a great presentation about how to make a workout app for the watch, and it was given at a meetup. And then there's also a Stack Overflow discussion about how to keep the app alive during a workout, because that's kind of challenging right now. So I was a part of the team that wrote the WatchKit by Tutorials book that was published by Ray Wenderlich, and it's a great resource for learning how to build watch apps if you haven't done that yet. And finally, my name is Ben Morrow. I'd love to hear your questions. Yes, we're working on an update to the book, and should be out soon. I sorry, I couldn't hear you. Yes. Yeah. Right now, there isn't any easing that you can do on the animate with duration. So so you can see some of the animation effects here: scale, fade, and move. But yes, so those are animate with duration. But you notice that you can't really do the bounce effect without kind of chaining them together. Other questions? Yes. And I will also post all the links and my slides in the comments after this. Is anybody working on a watchOS 2 application that they want to release? Flipboard. What are you building? Cool. Cool. Anybody else? Yeah, so I mean, with the train, some of the cool things that you can do is if you build a complication, then you can, use the time hop to see when the train's going to come in the future, how many minutes you have left. You could set a local notification to warn you when the train is about to come. Yep. Sorry, didn't hear you. No, you don't need the phone. As long as the watch has Wi-Fi and knows where it is, it can use the Wi-Fi triangulation to get the location. Yes, I guess it would have to have a known Wi-Fi network to query Apple's location services. I actually don't know the file size limit. I heard that there was a duration limit, but I don't know the file size limit.
Are the local notifications set on the watch? You notice them?
Yes.
So if you got an event, whatever date.
That's a good question. I actually would like to try that to make sure before I tell you for sure. But when you use watch connectivity, you actually make use of the extension delegate on the watch itself. So let me show you some of that code. So you can see that in the Cinema Time app, which is where you bought the movie tickets, we can actually call code from application did finish launching. And so I think you should be able to do a local notification on the watch itself. Yep.
Can you show map annotations with callouts on the watch?
For maps, what you can do is it generates a picture of the map, and you can put any kind of pin you want on there. So you could generate an image that has text and put that on the map, but then it's not interactive. So if the user presses on that image, it'll take them to the full Maps app.
They said co-location is working. Are beacon regions working too?
I don't know about that. Good question.
So about watchOS 2, that image should be maintained to coverage for direct target or color map. So do you need to create a separate target for watchOS 2?
Yes. So if you have an existing WatchKit app, then you do need to create a separate target for the watchOS 2. And I can show you that. So the Lister project, Apple has updated it for watchOS 2. However, since you can't do iCloud on the watch, then it seems to be crippled a little bit. But you would need a separate, hold directory and target for your watchOS 2 app. Yeah.
You were talking about before about the alerts and the types of alerts.
Mm-hmm.
But, is there any guide from Apple on when to use a specific one versus because you got the cancel button on the top of one, but down the bottom of the other one, the destructive one.
Yeah. I haven't seen a good guide about when to use which one. Is there a certain instance that you're thinking about using it or anything?
No, I'm just wondering
Mm.
which one would you choose?
Right.
I guess in iOS is a bit more of a, default.
Yeah.
Standard. I'm not sure if this.
I mean, I actually haven't seen anybody using an alert with buttons on it. Most of the time, people are just using the alerts with a little confirmation animation that fades away. Yes, that's right. Yeah, so let's see if I can show this. Your watch app can have app groups turned on, and so can your WatchKit extension, and then so could your iOS app as well. So you can use them, but they'll kind of be operating independently, and you sync files with watch connectivity. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming.